Hi, welcome to this webinar, Magic Numbers. I'm Leslie Ward. We've got about 30 people on at the moment. We're expecting up to about 40, so I'm thinking that some people are going to be joining us in the next minute or two. Just before they do, there's just a little bit of admin. On the right-hand side of your screen, you'll see a list of boxes, one of which is chat. Now, you can put questions by using that chat box. I won't be answering questions during this webinar. The reason being, when I ran this webinar a couple of weeks ago and we did that, it became a very, very long webinar, and I want to avoid that. And some of the questions are quite specific to people's own businesses, so they're not relevant for everyone on the call. But if you do have questions as we're going through, feel free to use that chat box and put any questions you have. I will come back to you after the webinar. You put your email address in there so I can come back to you via email. If you want me to give you a call, just put your phone number in there as well, and I'm quite happy to pick up the phone to you. Right, okay, I wanted just to show you that you're on with a real person. So that's me. Right, back to the webinar again, just so you know I'm a human being. So welcome to Magic Numbers. I just want to let you know a little bit about me so you can see why I'm running this webinar and why I'm qualified to talk to you about the topics that we're covering in this webinar today. Right, the first thing about me is my father was a musician. So I came from a very non-conventional background, and I also came from a background where there were no accountants, there were no professionals. In fact, I was the first person in our family to go to university. So the very sad thing is I'm actually a born accountant. I went to do a management science degree, and it became apparent after my first year that accounting was where my absolute ability lay. So I swapped to accounting and financial analysis as my degree, and I got a first class when I left university. I then went to train with KPMG. They're one of the top 4 accounting firms in the world. I qualified with them, and I then also went into their training department. So I wrote and ran courses for trainee accountants with KPMG. So that experience has come in incredibly useful for helping small business owners. I then moved into industry, and while I was in industry, I became a financial troubleshooter. Again, it soon became clear that my abilities lay in going into underperforming divisions, underperforming companies and subsidiaries, looking at what was happening and helping to turn that round. I eventually left industry and set up our own business for a work-life balance. I'm sure that's familiar to a lot of people on this webinar today. I found that I was, yes, earning the 6 figures, the company car, the big bonuses, but I was never seeing my children. So I left after I had my second son, and I've never looked back. And I've spent the last 8 years working with small businesses and helping them transform their profits. So taking the skills I learnt in the blue chip companies, in the big businesses, and applying it to small businesses and helping them do the very same thing. And just a little personal note, I've got 3 cats, 1 dog, or we've got 3 cats, 1 dog, Richard and myself. We had 5 cats, no dog at one time, so 5-0, but it was getting to the point where people were looking at us and saying, oh, how many cats do you have? And you say 5, and you get that look and you know enough's enough. So we've now scaled down to 3. We lost 2 naturally. We didn't get rid of them or anything, and we've got 1 dog to balance up things. My biggest achievements, I've worked on Wall Street and put $500,000 back in the bank, literally. I look at processes when I work with a client, and with the bank on Wall Street, I looked at the processes and I recognised straight away that they had a hole in their processes that had allowed $500,000 to seep out to a third party, and by putting the processes back in place, we were able to get that $500,000 back. I've also turned a £5 million business from £200,000 loss to a £300,000 profit in 18 months. I put this up and I say I've turned a £5 million business. It was actually 5 smaller businesses, each turning over about £1 million and each being run by 1 manager. And it wasn't me that turned it round, it was them that turned it round. I gave them the skills to do it. I gave them the financial confidence and the confidence in the numbers to enable them to look at the numbers and make the wise decisions in those business units, which meant that they literally in 18 months turned the business around from 200k loss to 300k profit. And if you're watching this webinar and thinking, I'm not a numbers person, I don't like numbers, I don't want to do it. In fact, it's probably my accountant's responsibility to do the numbers. I run my business, I don't deal with that. Just be aware the guys there were very much not number people. And when I came into that those divisions, I have to say that I knew that there were little voodoo dolls somewhere with pins being stuck in of me. After the 18 months of working with them, and they saw the impact it had, and the fact that it wasn't scary, it wasn't a black art, their roles were being redefined by the powers that be. And one of the things they were taking out of their role was responsibility for the numbers. And they actually came to me en masse and said, can you please talk to them and make sure that the numbers are not taken out of our role, because it's absolutely key in running our business units that we have responsibility for the numbers. And it's the same in your business. You have to have responsibility for the numbers. You have to understand the numbers. And all successful business owners have understood that. Right from your Richard Bransons and your Alan Sugars, if you read their biographies, down to your everyday business owner who's making a nice amount of money, they understand that they need to know the numbers. And my other biggest achievement, I've had children and survived. That might not seem much of an achievement, but we have a son with Asperger's, and for those of you who don't know, it's an autistic spectrum disorder, and it makes life very interesting because it's like living with a very, very angry Victor Meldrew who's on acid, basically. So it makes life interesting. So we've got 2 boys, and our eldest has got Asperger's, and another reason for my work-life balance and how we run our business now. In this webinar, what we'll go through the pricing trap, what it is and how to avoid it. And we'll then go through income accelerator mapping, what it is, the 5 key numbers in your business you need to know, and the superhero numbers. The superhero numbers are the numbers that will really, really make the difference to your business. Now, one of the things we instill in our clients, and one of the things we live by in our business, is if you always do what you've always done, you'll always get what you've always got. And you need to bear this in mind whilst watching this webinar, because some of the things we'll cover, a lot of it hopefully will be relevant for your business, some of it won't, some of it you might shy away and think, well, that's just ridiculous. It isn't. The ideas and the information I'm going to share with you in this webinar, it is all possible for your business. It isn't a question of can I, it's a question of will I. All of you are capable of taking away the information in this webinar and starting to apply it to your own businesses, but you need to be open-minded, and you need to be thinking not can I, you need to be thinking will I. If you don't walk away from this webinar and do one thing differently in your business, then you've just spent 40 minutes, hopefully an enjoyable 40 minutes in the webinar, but you haven't learned to implement in your business. Right, first of all, before we start the webinar, I want to dispel some myths, because this will be useful as we go through, that we've got these out of the way so they're not in the front of your mind when we're going through this. The first one is people buy on price. People do not buy on price. But if you don't differentiate, people can only buy on price. If you don't give people a reason to pay more money for your product, then they will go for the cheapest if that's the only thing they have to differentiate on. And I just want to give you an example of this from our own experience over the last 18 months. We had our house painted last April, May time. And when we had it painted, we got 3 quotes in. We always get 3 quotes in for everything. When we've got quite a big house, so we're expecting a significant bill for getting it painted. Plus the fact we're at the top of a hill, so we tend to get hit by the weather. The first guy came around, he looked and he walked around the house, and he came around the front and he gave us a quote, and it was a reasonable quote. It was less than we were expecting, so you know that was fine. Second guy came along, walked around, looked at the house, came around and said, basically, any quote you get, I'll beat. I'll do as good a job, but I'll beat any quote. Okay, fine. The third guy came along. He got his ladder out. He must have spent an hour going around our house, put a ladder up in every place he could get to, and some places we didn't think he'd be able to get to, but he put a ladder up there anyway. And he brought us around some bits of wood that he'd got off the wood around our house where it had gone rotten. And he brought it round to us, and he said that you've got places where the weather's really taken its toll on your wood. You're going to have it replaced. What we'll do is we'll cut out, we'll insert, we'll rub down. And he went through everything he was going to do. And then he gave us his quote, and his quote was significantly higher than the second quote we'd had, or the first quote rather that we'd had, and it was probably 40% higher. But we bought from him, we used him because he gave us confidence that he knew what he was talking about. He gave us confidence that he spent time looking at what was needed. He demonstrated to us why it wasn't a straightforward job of just rubbing down and painting. So what he did is he demonstrated value to us. And that's what people want. You think about it in your own life. You don't always go for the cheapest. What you go for is value. If people just went for cheapest, everybody would be driving. Actually, I don't know what the cheapest car is now. I'm guessing it's not a Dacia or whatever it's called that they advertise on TV. But people aren't all driving Dacias. They're driving all sorts of cars because what they're looking at are their needs and they want value. Right, having dealt with that myth, myth 2 is that most small businesses fail in their first year. And I know some of you on the call aren't startups, but this is relevant to you too. And I hear it all the time. Most small businesses fail in their first year. And what follows on from that is most small businesses fail full stop. Well, the reality is 20% of startups fail in their first year. So it's a significant proportion. 1 in 5 businesses will fail in their first year. And 50% will fail within their first 3 years. And if you're past your first 3 years, congratulations. The other thing I would say genuine congratulations for is being on this webinar, because the FSB conducted a survey as to the main reasons why businesses fail. And the main reason is lack of cash flow. And we see it all the time. Profitable businesses going under because they run out of cash. They grow too fast, they don't manage their cash. And that's the truth. But the second reason they identified was a lack of skills in the owner and a lack of education, a lack of training in the owner. And the very fact that you're on this webinar means you're one of those business owners who wants to get more information, who wants to get more skills to enable their business to flourish. And you are a significant minority, and a lot of your competition won't be on webinars like this. So you've got a head start on a lot of other businesses out there. The other myth we come across all the time is that you can't make money in business, especially when the recession hit and things are changing, the environment's changing, technology is kicking in. Up to, say, 1990s, it was easy to make money in business. You just, you set up your stall and customers came to you. Now it's also complicated, it's also difficult, and it's become impossible to make real money in business. That's not true. You can make money in business. It is possible to make money in business. But the shocking truth we find when we sit down with small business owners is most business owners aren't making enough money. And not only are most small businesses not making enough money, they don't even aspire to make enough money. And make no doubts about it, as a small business owner, you are the backbone of this country, especially if you then go on and employ people. And the risks you're taking are huge. It would be so much easier, and you probably think this from time to time, it would be so much easier just to go and get a job and do 9 to 5. But the fact you're not doing that is something is driving you on. And you deserve to achieve your goals and your aspirations for taking that risk and for adding that value to this country. God, I sound like a party political broadcast. That's not good. So I'm going to just say one more thing on this point. And that is, do not let your small business make you small-minded. You do not have to have the goals of being, twice I've mentioned name drop Richard Branson, Alan Sugar. You don't have to have those goals, but you do have to have those goals that meet your genuine needs and your genuine wants in life. And that may just be that you're in a 3-bedroom house now and you want to move to a 5-bedroom, or you're driving a Daewoo and you want to drive a Mercedes. They don't have to be huge, but they do have to be good, what we call them BHAGs, big, hairy, audacious goals. They have to be, you have to be able to emotionally connect with them. Now, we cover goals in a different webinar and blogs, etc. So it's not really one for this business, for this webinar. But But please think about your goals, and don't sit there, as we've had with so many business owners, and say, I want to earn just a little bit more than my highest paid employee. Why? No, you want to earn a lot more than your highest paid employee. Right, myths and facts dealt with. Welcome to Magic Numbers. So the number one question we get asked whenever we sit down with anybody, or 9 times out of 10, should I decrease my prices? I'm having problems maintaining my market share and I'm thinking about decreasing my prices. And our standard response is no, you should not decrease your prices, and in fact you should increase your prices. And what I want to do, because as I said at the beginning, I wanted to get some of the myths out of the way, so you're all yelling at the screen, oh yeah, that sounds really easy, doesn't it? But I just want to show you the numbers and make you aware of why you should not be decreasing your prices. So let's just take a business. Say you turn over 200,000 and you've got direct costs of 140,000. That means you've got a gross profit of 60,000, a 30% gross profit of 60,000. Let's imagine you decrease your price by 10%, and you think by decreasing your price by 10%, you'll be able to increase the quantity you sell by 10%. Well, let's look at what that does to your numbers. Your sales aren't significantly different. Your direct costs have gone up because you're selling more, but your gross profit has gone down from 60,000 to 44,000. So you've actually had a reduction of £16,000 profit, and that's huge when you're only starting off with a £60,000 profit to begin with. £16,000 reduction. You're probably yelling at the screen now that, okay, I wouldn't decrease my prices if I only thought that I could increase the quantity by 10%. I would only decrease them if I thought I could double. You know, I could get 20% more customers. Okay, so let's have a look at that one. You decrease your price by 10% and the quantity sold increases by 20%. What that means is you're now making significantly more sales, even though it's only 16k more, £216,000 worth of sales. And your gross profit is still £12,000 less than you started with. The other thing that we would say to you about decreasing your prices is if you decrease your prices, you will attract the people who buy on price. And we call them BMWs, bitches, moaners and whingers. And you know the ones, they're the ones you want to get rid of in your business. And if you decrease your prices, you'll attract more. And the shocking truth in this example, a business turning over 200,000 with a £60,000 gross profit, is you would need 50% more sales to make the same profit with a 10% price cut. 50%. You would be working 50% harder and you would be making the same profit. So what we say to customers, or to clients rather, it is vital to avoid the Sofa King syndrome. What's the Sofa King syndrome? Our prices are Sofa King low. Right, increasing prices. What's your biggest fear when you increase prices? Yeah, your biggest fear is going to be you'll lose too many customers to make it work. So what I want to do is walk through how you can do this and how you can know before you do it what your downside and what your upside is going to be. So let's say you increase your prices by 10%. I've just had somebody send through and said they didn't get the Sofa King. So just in case you didn't get the Sofa King, I'm just going to go back to that quickly. So our prices are so fucking low. Hopefully that's explained it a little bit more, but let's move on. So we're going to increase prices by 10%. And we're going to, that means if you increase your prices by 10%, revenue will go up by 20,000, profit will go up by 20,000. That sounds great, but what you want to know is how many customers could you lose and still make the same money? Right, if you were to increase your prices by 10%, you could lose 25% of your customers. So you could lose 1 in 4 customers and you could still make the same amount of take-home money. 1 in 4 customers. And when working with clients, in my experience, the probable drop, the sort of drop we tend to see when they increase their prices by about 10% is normally 15%. So they'll lose about 15% of their customers. So let's have a look what that does. That still means that with less sales, less work, you're making more profit. Your profit's gone from 60k to 68k. So that's an extra £8,000 of profit. Now, the utopian situation is you increase your price by 10% and your quantity sold increases by 10%. And I know you're looking at the screen and you're thinking, well, okay, fine, that looks great, but how am I going to do that? We'll go through that in a minute, but let's just look at the impact on this business. If they increase their price by 10% and they can also do the magic and increase their quantity sold by 10%, they would make an extra £28,000 a year profit. Now, these are their numbers, the numbers of the example we're giving. You will have your own numbers in your business, and it's your challenge is to find out what those numbers are. But if we're looking at this and we're looking at an extra £28,000 profit, that has got to be worth investigating, worth looking at. And in terms of increasing your price and increasing your quantity sold, yes, it's a challenge to do that. What you need to do is you need to add more value, and we actually have a separate webinar of how you can increase your prices and still keep or increase your volume. But we also, with our clients, we give them access to something called the Business Growth System. It's a sales and marketing tools, and it's full of low-cost, no-cost strategies to implement in your business. And in every business, you will have a magic price. And your magic price, if we're looking at this graph, if you're to the left of this graph, it means if you increase your price, you will increase your profit. So your increased price will more than offset any customers you lose. And I'm going to see if I can move my mouse. So if you're on this side of the magic price curve, anytime you increase your price, you'll increase your profit, because that increase in price will more than offset how many customers you lose. If you're on this side of the curve, it means if you increase your price, then the customers you lose won't be offset by your increased price, and you'll start losing profit. And the key for you is to know what that magic price is in your business, or at least know which side of that magic price you are. And to know that, you need to have an understanding as to if you increase your price, how many customers do you think you'll lose? And what will that do to your profit? You need to avoid a price war. You are very, very unlikely to win a price war. Look at the big supermarkets and look at what's happening now. Unless you're the biggest, most aggressive in the marketplace, you won't win. And even if you are one of the biggest and most aggressive, you can really take a hit when someone comes in and starts pulling the rug from under you. At the end of this webinar, I'm going to put up a guide for you. It gives you an idea as to, for each price increase, how many customers, how much more volume would you need to get to maintain your profit on different margin points. So it's not a replacement. It's telling you basically, or giving you an idea as to what the impact of what we've just gone through will be on your business. It is not a replacement for running the numbers in your business, but it's there as a guide. So you need to start understanding those numbers in your business, understanding where you are on that magic price curve, and thinking about whether you could raise your prices. And if you did raise your prices, how could you make sure that you don't lose those customers? So that's the pricing trap. And now we're going on to income accelerator mapping. And the income accelerator mapping is the tip that will allow you to spend less time guessing in your business, and it will actually force you to make a few small changes in a few key areas that will create you big income gains. Once you know your numbers, it removes the feeling of uncertainty, and it makes you realize that you can, the areas you need to concentrate on, the changes you need to make to actually start making a significant impact on your business. And here's how it works. Your business pivots around 5 key numbers. And knowing those numbers will allow you to make major improvements in a very short space of time. This is going to be simple to follow. So you need to watch, and I will reveal what those numbers are, and I will also reveal how you can change them and the impact that could make on your business. And the numbers that we're talking about are the number of leads and inquiries, conversion rate, average spend, buying frequency, and gross profit. But before we go any further, there's a hidden factor that I'm going to reveal now, and it will highlight why it's important to know the numbers that make the big difference in your business. Because normally when I talk to people about these numbers, they nearly always focus on inquiries and leads, getting more inquiries and leads. But you want to do the opposite, because focusing on inquiries and leads has the highest cost and the lowest return. And if I give you an example, I'll demonstrate how this works and why this works. So what we're going to do in this example is we're going to double the sales and profits of a business without generating one extra lead. In fact, what we're going to do is we're actually going to decrease the leads. So imagine you have a business that generates 520 leads a year, converts 32% to customers, has customers that buy on average once a year. They spend an average of £250 and you make 60% gross profit per customer. That means you have sales of 41,600 and gross profits of 24,960. So now we're going to have a look at what happens when we make some small changes. So if we increase conversion by just 10% to 42%, let's increase the average number of times someone buys by just 0.5 to 1.5 times a year. Tweak the average order value by 10% to £275 and increase gross profit by 5% to 6.5%. Sorry, to 65%. I've got a decimal place in the wrong place there. We had a 60% gross profit. Let's increase it to 65% gross profit. And the result? Sales more than double to £85,586. And profits skyrocket, and I do mean skyrocket, from 24,960 to £55,631. That's an increase of 123%. But remember at the beginning of this, I said to you that we're going to decrease leads. And we did. In this example, we got to these numbers even though we decreased leads by 5%. And that's why I call conversion rate, buying frequency, average spend per customer, and gross profit per purchase the Fantastic Four. Apologies to Marvel if I'm not a fan, so I don't know whether the Fantastic Four is a Marvel thing or not, but they are. In your business, these four numbers are the Fantastic Four. And they are your, quite literally, superhero numbers. And the superhero numbers will change your business and income potential. If you understand them, if you know them, if you focus on them, they have the ability to significantly change your business and income potential. So, is it simple? Yes. Is it easy? No. Is it worth it? Absolutely. When you look at the impact that tweaking these can have on your business, it is worth it, absolutely. And let's just have a look at what the Income Accelerator map looks like. This is the Income Accelerator map. These have got the numbers that we've discussed in this webinar. You can see down the left-hand column, you've got your original sales of 41,600, and it's increased by those small tweaks down here. You can see at the top that we've decreased leads by 5%, but sales have increased from 41,600 to 85,586, and the profit has increased from 24,960 to 55,631. Now, again, is it simple? Yes, it's a simple concept. Is it easy? No. It's not easy to get to know those numbers, and it's not easy to change them. It won't happen overnight. But if you can see that you've got these sort of numbers to aim for in your business, is it worth it? Absolutely. So we've covered a lot in this webinar. You might be feeling a little bit overwhelmed. You might be feeling a bit confused, and that's okay, because this webinar is all about opening your eyes to the possibilities. I said at the beginning of the webinar, what we say to our clients is, if you always do what you've always done, you'll always get what you've always got. And this is about not can you, it's about will you, and it's opening your eyes to the possibilities, opening your eyes to the impact knowing those numbers can have on your business. And another one of our mantras that we say to our clients is that profits are a consequence of all the things you do in your business. So if you can work out how to improve all the things you do in your business, then the consequence will be better profits. So profits are a consequence of all the things you do in your business. So if you can work out how to improve all the things you do in your business, then the consequence will be better profits. It's not about making huge step changes. It's about making little changes. Most businesses fail because of a failure to implement. FTI, failure to implement. In fact, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to put a PDF under this webinar, and I'm going to have our two mantras, the if you always do what you've always done, and the profits are a consequence. I'm going to have them there for you to download and print off and put somewhere, so that you can look at them and you can think, yeah, I need to just tweak everything in my business one at a time, not everything. If you do that, you'll overwhelm yourself. And also, you need to change. If you're on this webinar today, it's because you know that, it's because you know there's more possibilities for you out there. And you need to make some changes. But if you just walk away from the webinar always doing what you've always done, you'll always get what you've always got. So I'll put those underneath the webinar for you, or get those to you if you've attended this webinar, so you can print them off, stick them up somewhere and look at them. Now, this is a webinar to give you value, to give you ideas for your business, and to give you information for your business, but also...
Oh, hello. I'm not sure what happened there. I think we must have lost the internet for a second or two, but I do apologise. Anyway, I was taking you through how we deal with our clients. We want to be the super accountant for our clients, and we want to create a relationship whereby the client sees us as a valuable asset in their business. Every client who signs up with us gets access to the Business Growth system. I mentioned this earlier on. It's an online system, and it's chock full of low-cost and no-cost strategies to help you grow your business. Why not get in touch? You can sign up for our risk-free 90-day trial, and after 90 days, if you're not happy that we've delivered the service that we've promised, you can walk away and we'll refund every penny you've paid. Plus, if you do decide to go ahead with us, you're still covered by our first year 100% absolute delight guarantee. At the end of your first year with us, in fact during your whole relationship with us, we'll work really hard to make sure you're absolutely 100% delighted. In the first year, if at any time again we fail to deliver on our promises, you have the right to pay us as much or as little as you think our services have been worth. And going forward, after the first year, if at any time you're not 100% absolute delighted, we want you to be at least a 9 out of 10 on the delight scale. In fact, preferably a 10 out of 10 or even an 11 out of 10. If you're not, we will put in place a 3-month program to work with you to bring you back up to a 9 out of 10, at least a 9 out of 10. So why not sign up for your risk-free trial? The number to contact us on is on the screen right now. I'm Leslie Ward, that's me on the left, the one with hair. I'm a chartered accountant, and that's my husband Richard Baldwin on the right. He's a chartered tax advisor, so we cover the whole spectrum in terms of the services you need to help you in your business. So why not sign up for your 90-day risk-free trial, give us a call, or drop me an email, Leslie at The Friendly Accountants. Thank you very much for watching this webinar. I hope you found it super useful for your business, and I look forward to being in contact with you in the future. Take care.